The IKEA Effect. Erin Leff. We got to talk about it.
I'm so excited to talk about it.
I am too. I was really surprised. Someone first mentioned the IKEA Effect can impact your real estate business, both in sales and even in leadership. And I was like, all right, I got to check this out. And I really wanted to do it with you. So what do you know about the IKEA Effect?
So the IKEA Effect is basically the premise that if you build something with your own two hands, that it is infinitely more valuable to you. And I actually totally agree with that. I think as consumers, and you've seen stuff, right, where you pay more money to go create things yourself.
Yes.
Like when you go to a cooking class or baking or whatever. And so the idea behind it is that, you pay more money for the experience of actually putting it together. And I actually think that transcends real estate a little bit. And it's actually across all business building aspects, I believe. So
it really is. It's interesting to me that it has a huge impact on leadership.
Yes.
And on building a culture within a team.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to talk to you about that. And one of the reasons I'm excited to talk to you about it in particular is because, Erin Leff, you are an amazing team leader at the Keller Williams Austin Market Center.
That's right.
So I think you guys have a shorthand for it, like KW Austin,
Yeah, it's KW Austin 1. So this is basically like headquarters for Keller Williams. And we have several market centers and business centers that are a part of this group of market centers. So I'm blessed to be a leader with them while also running my own team. I also do real estate and still do the whole gamut, but I have the honor of being able to lead agents in this wonderful city. And for that, I'm very grateful.
Well, it's really funny because when I started checking out the IKEA Effect, and I was like, that really does show up. It shows up for me where I enjoy meals more when I actually cooked them or when my son actually cooked them. So we cook at home a lot. Now I know that's not a universal statement, but I think even something as small as, wow, I made that ribeye and I remembered to put in the rosemary. I, on a subconscious level, feel better about myself when I achieve something even that small. With the IKEA Effect, when you really dig in on it, people feel better about themselves when they accomplish something as simple as assembling a kit. And they will value the product of it at a higher level than if they just went out and bought, pre-assembled shelves, even at, say, at a comparably valued place.
Yeah. I think there's something to that, though, right? That it's got a little bit of a sentimental value. There's a piece of us, right, in anything that we build. And even if that was in partnership with somebody else, I think about, anything that I've done with my husband, and there's some of those things that's silly that maybe it was like a paint night or whatever.
Right.
Those things hold infinitely more value than anything that I could buy at Home Goods, because that was something that we were able to create together. And so I do not disagree at all. And especially in business, it's so much easier to be all in when you can see what you're building. And I think that is honestly one of the most powerful things that anybody could bring to business, is getting people's hands actually in the mix and making it theirs.
Yes.
When it comes to my real estate team regularly, we have conversations about, this team is just as much mine as it is y'all's. I've had the same conversation recently with our associate leadership council inside of the market centers that I run, where it's really about this is ours together, and we're building something that is all of ours. And what would you like your piece to be? And I believe that's how you leave an impact and leave a legacy, is in building things together. So yeah, I love the idea of it, because it's could you go out and buy a piece of furniture from anywhere and it be comparable in price to something that you may get at IKEA, but it's yours, right? You built it.
You built it, right? And they have found, even if there's a flaw, you still value it at a higher level, and the flaw actually makes it more yours. So it is fascinating to me. I thought of an example. You mentioned sentimentality or an emotional connection, and that's really what it leads to, is a story and an emotional connection. And I was debating this with a skeptic who's like, I don't think that really is a real thing. And I said, so let me ask you this. If you had a a yellow blanket that your grandmother had knit for you when you were a baby. And then you also had a brand new, beautiful Pottery Barn for kids blanket still in the packaging. Which one is worth more?
Yeah.
And they're like, ah. So, and when I thought about that example, it does carry down. It creates the legacy. It creates a attachment to an object that impacts the value. Sometimes, frankly, people say that grandmother's blanket is priceless, right?
Yeah.
However, if I picked up an old 50-year-old handmade blanket that really isn't anything extraordinary, that the grandmother happened to knit when she was wanting to do something with some leftover yarn, and that was a baby blanket was the only product left. If we showed that to anyone else that didn't have the history or the relationships or the love or the story, they'd be like, no, aren't you giving that to charity? It wouldn't have it. Yeah. So it's very interesting to me.
I totally agree. And to tie it to like the business part, the business thoughts behind the IKEA effect, it's that, when I actually think that this is where companies get it wrong quite a bit, especially in building teams.
Yes.
Or, if you have employees and staff and stuff like that, one of the things that I have found to be really impactful as a leader is making it feel like theirs,
Yes.
right? And this goes on with or without me, I think is kind of over. I think a lot of the workforce crave to have more meaning and sentimentality. Is that the right word for
yes.
that?
Yeah.
To have that inside of what they do every day. People crave purpose. They crave doing things that matter. And when you can show them what they're building is important and that it impacts people's lives and it makes people better, whether that be real estate or anything else, right? When you can tie it to something that matters, it becomes infinitely more important. And Simon Sinek, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, right? And so when you have a story behind it and your whole organization understands their impact together collectively as a team, that's culture to me. That is really what matters. And that's how you build a really significant organization and move companies from that good to great. Right?
I agree. Yeah.
Shows up in purpose.
Yes. And I want to even carry that further. I think you're right. Actually, this is really a management effect that could transform a company that is either at a plateau or stagnant. Yeah. If the HR manager or the director of sales or the director of operations, like if somebody in a leadership role really took on how could I add the IKEA effect into each individual that is working on my team, and they force themselves to not micromanage, but to truly allow the employee to create, assemble, revise, refine, but really take ownership in an independent manner and then present, look what I've done.
Even if it's got a nick.
That's right. It's got a nick. Yes. Even if their story includes like, you won't believe it, I accidentally deleted this and had to recreate the one like it. That again, it makes it more personal. And they are going to feel more valuable, more successful, and it will raise their self-esteem when they're able to do that.
Yeah. And I think people learn inside of that freedom so much quicker anyways, right? And so giving your people the ability to have creative control over building something that is a part of the bigger purpose and the bigger why as to why everybody is there, but not only, of course, breeds leadership skills, but it ties them to your organization of purpose, right? Yes. When we talk about retention and wanting the people that we love the most around for forever. Not that people will be with me for forever, but you want people to care about it as much as you do.
Right.
And when it comes to all in, to me, that's what that means. It's that they're able to own where they're standing on their own 2 feet and be able to build things in their role that matters to them. And I think that, that's happiness at the end of the day. That's being able to have a job and finding purpose and happiness inside of that, which is ultimately what everybody is after anyway.
It is what they're after.
Enjoy what they're doing.
I mean, obviously, yes, anyone who may want to debate this with us, they'd say, oh, there's some people that legit just go to work to get their check and leave. Okay, well, we're talking about people that want to turn a job into a more satisfying career.
Well, they're not people I necessarily would want
attract
in my world,
into our
right?
correct. Yeah. So we don't need to worry about that. Side note. One of the other parts of this, especially in the real estate industry or the broker industry, because you've got the big office, oftentimes people that are staff positions rather than sales positions, they feel detached from goals being achieved. And I feel like if you add this in and allow them to, again, whatever their skill set is, create, refine, polish, implement, but allow them to do that with authority. Allow them to do that independently, valued and supported, right? So not throw them to the wind, right? But then they're going to see when goals are achieved, they're going to go, I was part of that. They're going to feel like they were part of building the.
Totally. And it's beyond, I think. So let me back up for a second. You can for this.
Yeah.
When they have a project or something that they're working on that is bigger than them, I've literally seen this recently inside of my own market center where you just go, hey, I'm here for guidance and I'm here for help. I want to see what you're made of. I want to see what you can do. Why don't we put together a plan and see what happens? And here's, you have all the freedom in the world. Here's the outcome that we're looking for. We know what our starting point is, but the journey is yours to create, right?
Right.
And I have watched that be so powerful in confidence in people who maybe thought that they weren't, maybe that wasn't the pathway for them, or I don't know if that's possible, or I don't even know if I'm interested in that. And it's kind of like, that's okay, but you're never going to know unless we try, right?
Right.
So I even as a confidence builder, when you go back to the IKEA effect and you think about literally sitting there putting something together, that's actually how I view companies. And a lot of times, even in my real estate business, I equated Keller Williams specifically, a lot of times to Legos. What piece do you want to utilize to build your business?
Right.
So what are you building together? And you decide what pieces you need to build whatever it is that you would like to build. But when you brought this topic to me, I was like, yes, that makes so much sense to me because that is exactly how it goes. And it means more because it's your business. It's yours. They're your Legos.
That's right. Yeah.
You get to decide what color you want. You get to decide are we building a castle today? Are we building a car? What are we doing? And ultimately, at the end of the day, it goes back to the purpose piece of craving something that means more than ourselves.
I agree.
And when you're building something from the ground up, that's exactly what it is. You could go purchase a business, or you could go maybe insert yourself into somebody else's business, but it only means something if you understand that you matter, right? And that's where And that's that retention piece. People have to matter in order for you to stay in business with them. So yeah.
You know what? Carrying this out one more layer. So we already know that the immediate person or people. So going back to IKEA furniture, I remember a long time ago building a really significant bookcase. I needed help. So we did it together, and then we had the joint feeling and the joint history, and we were both proud. Yeah, we did it. Look at that. And we valued it. So in a lot of instances, the increased value in the item created does not carry over to others. We gave one example where it does. If it's sentimental, familial, and there's love involved, it carries on to others. There's another area where I believe this applies to others. So even when you're shopping, if you're shopping and you're looking at items, many people will pay more for something that is handmade. So they didn't make it, but they value well, yes, I'll pay $7 more because this one was handmade, right? So it does have some ways that it carries over. There's one way in particular that I've seen happen in business building, and I am curious to see if you agree or if you have another insight, okay?
Okay.
All right, so we are hearing about a success story in business, right? And we hear that the owner of the company started from nothing. They overcame obstacles. At one point, they lost everything, and they were determined, and they kept going. And then they took on Goliath, and they hit Goliath in the knee, and they then got a big contract, right? So when you hear a story like that and you evaluate the business they've built,
Yeah.
I believe people naturally place a higher value on that versus, hey, Betty Lou Brown, she just set up a multi-million-dollar sales corporation. However, I heard she's married to a doctor, and the doctor's brother is a big developer. And
Yeah.
she lives in One Ford Place. So we have two companies, equal amounts of sales volume, equal amount of transactions. Even as an outsider, which one do we think is more valuable?
People love an underdog.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with the story, Bridget. What is your story? And that's what the IKEA effect is, right? You have a story that goes along with this thing that you're building, and people love stories. That's why they buy things. And I'll give you an example. Have you ever been into like an antique shop?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And they have a ton of stuff, and I am an antique fanatic, if that's not something everybody needs to know about me. I love antiques. Okay. People pay more money for things that have the story that go along with it.
Yes.
Versus you have this photo on the wall, nobody knows what it is, versus it having a little plaque there that says this was painted in 1901 by blah, 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 and it was on their family farm, yada, yada, yada. Like when it has the story, people pay infinitely more money for the story, which is what we're talking about, right?
Right. Provenance.
I'll even equate this back to real estate. And when it comes to sellers, imagine a seller building a custom home from the ground up, and they know every penny, everything that went into the house. They have more sentimental value on that and think that it's worth more than the general public would that didn't put their blood, sweat, and tears into it, or even an appraiser. They're not going to care, right? But to that seller, that was their dream home, their forever home. That was the bits and pieces and the Legos of their life that are inside of this home. And that seller is going to value that home infinitely more than the open public would.
I know. Yeah. And they will equate the higher value. It's funny you mentioned that, because this is something that makes the IKEA effect an important dynamic to discuss with selling agents. So they can factor this in when they are meeting with a client and understand that because of that emotional history and the customization and the blood, sweat, and tears they put into building that custom home, they're going to expect a higher price. And the reality is, the majority of today's buyers want what today's buyers want for home design today. By the way, I think that we can expect a tidal wave of this dynamic happening in the real estate market with sellers coming on. People are aging in place so much longer than anyone predicted, but that rising crest, boomers are going to start selling their homes, and we're going to run into this more and more often.
Yeah.
You know what, Erin? We even see this with younger sellers. So even if they didn't build the house, let's just say someone, 2018, they bought a new construction home, just bought it, in a regular neighborhood. So they picked a model, did a few customizations, right? So they built that home. If they've done anything to it, if they put in a cobblestone curved pathway to the backyard, in their eyes, that's beautiful and artistic and organic looking, and it looks like it's been there longer than the house has been built. To today's buyers, they're like, there's a shoddy path we have to, deal with, right? So that's it's so funny. I do think for your agents you're bringing on, this is something that you could discuss, because if they have some insight into the emotional impact on self-esteem of the IKEA effect, I believe they will have more sensitive and powerful conversations with sellers that may be hanging on to or adding value to things where today's consumer is not going to put the same value on it.
Absolutely. Well, and not only that, but so one of the things that we have put in place, and I've put in place in my real estate business, has been doing a better job of truly telling that story. If there is something sentimental about the property that we are selling, which this week I'm literally under contract on one that had a lot of sentimental value, and it was really hard for her to sell that home.
Right.
I took it upon myself to tell that story. She is so cool. She had a music video done about the property. She's a musician. It just meant a lot. It was right on the river. It was a fishing cabin, and, making sure that I did it justice. And the person who bought it may not have cared, but we got really lucky that the person did care a whole lot about the property's history. And I would venture to say that we got more money because we were able to tell that story and make it mean something to the next consumer. Now, that's not going to be everybody.
Right.
However, it made my seller breathe a little bit, who was a little bit more on the sentimental front. It made her breathe a little bit that we were telling that story and letting that property have life for the next person in a similar way. And so while most people won't care, every now and then you get a buyer who really cares.
They love that. Right.
And they want the property to matter in the same way with the IKEA effect, where you want the things around you, like you have more sentimental value in you building it. You also hold a little bit more value when you know the story about somebody else building it.
That's right. Yes.
So holding on to that and knowing that, I think, is super cool too.
I think that ties in with that handmade element. And I know we're talking about a history and an emotional story of what took place in a property, but really, they made that. The people that lived there made that energy and that story. So I think that's really compelling. And it
might have digressed.
I feel like what you did with that client actually made their customer experience working with you and your team personalized, customized, and so much better.
Yeah, there was a whole love letter when you walked in. So we posted this love letter from the seller with a link to the music video that she had done, and just given a little history about the property, because it truly is, it's a very magical spot. And giving them that ability to connect with that, I think, is important, because that's what everybody craves: connection.
Yes.
Whether it's in your stuff, whether it's in who you work with, whether it's in vintage clothing that you bought that had a story. I think at the end of the day, ultimately, that's what the IKEA effect is about, is that even if it's about you building furniture, there was a memory there. There was a story there. There was something that happened there, which is why the nick doesn't matter, is because you had purpose with it, right? And that's what this is all about. Humans love stories. We love to know that the things that we're invested in matter.
Yes. Yeah. So I feel like this has so many applications. Leadership. How are you showing up as a leader? And are you showing up as a leader that's going to allow people to assemble their own furniture so they feel better while they're in your organization?
Yeah,
managers, same thing. So, because I know some people look at management and leadership slightly different, but same vein. Like, as a manager, if you have someone who is unhappy yet not stating why they are, or you're seeing a drift in their engagement, or, when you pick up on those clues that something's not quite right, but they're not sharing it with you. What if you just did a little test and in a non-punitive way went to them actually with a little bit of a compliment, like, you know what, I really feel like you'd be the best person for the job, and I have this special project. Give them the flat box IKEA bookshelf to assemble, and then let them come back to
your interview process.
Yeah, right. So it's I just feel like it is something that you can look at from both sides, both leadership and an employee, and see how could that make a difference. And then clearly with the sales.
Yeah. Well, so you hit something that triggered something else in me that I think is important for the audience to understand and know, is that in building companies, sometimes as the owner and the person with all of the Legos and the ones figuring it out, right, we are very emotionally attached to what it is that we are building because it's ours, i.e. the IKEA effect, right? And when it comes time to leverage you and your life and who the manager person that's going to be underneath you when they come in, I believe that a lot of companies are lost inside of that middle management because us as leaders, we have the burden of knowledge. We already know that we love it and we already know so many things. And sometimes it's really hard for us to articulate our stories of our companies that we are building. And so you put somebody in to manage all of your other employees or all of the people underneath you, and they don't have quite the same tie, the same love, the same story associated associated with actually building it. And so oftentimes when I consult these other organizations, that's one of the things that I really hone in on is, what is that story you're telling your people? And do they love it as much as you love it? Because if not, you're going to suffer in retention. You're going to suffer in, holding on to quality employees. But if you go hire somebody that is in management, please give them a piece of the puzzle. Please give them a piece of the pie, because you would be shocked at how, especially like with some of my background, you'd be shocked at how much purpose that gives them and instantly turns them into a builder instead of a manager.
Yes.
And so I think that could be so powerful for companies. And oftentimes it's just really easy to be overlooked because that's not how a lot of people have done it previously. But we're in a different workforce, right?
We are.
Now than when some of these like team concepts and stuff like that started. And so that's usually my one piece of advice to people who are looking to build is get really good at telling that story and giving your people that piece to be theirs.
To assemble. Yeah, give them the flat box to assemble.
That's right.
So that they then start seeing themselves in the story that you've shared with them.
That's right. Yeah. You have to be willing for them to become a part of your story though, right? Like
make a mistake.
Yes, and edge over a little bit as a leader and say, hey, there's enough space for you here to be just as successful as I am, and I love you, and I want to see you grow, and I want you to be in my world, and we're in this together. And that's really what talent craves, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily need to be all about them all of the time, but they do want to know that it matters and that they have purpose and they're building their own legacy while also being in business with you.
I think it's really critical. And it could just make such a huge difference. I think one of the things that happened in our industry, our primary industry of real estate, during COVID, it became speed, efficiency, accessibility became the mission critical. So when you're looking to be efficient, you don't want to bring on a new team member and say like, okay, Erin, so here's our story. And, I'd love to get your ideas on how we could create change here and let them build something. Yeah. What we had to do is be like, all right, we have the systems. We can make it happen. You can come in, plug and play. There was phrases like that we were using all over. We want everything in a box where you just plug it in and go. I believe over time, most people did not find that satisfying, and they felt detached from the success. And we had a lot of people that said, I'm working this hard for somebody else, right? So I feel like we lost some of that attachment. I mean, tell me if you think I'm nuts, but I think
it was honestly, I feel like the biggest struggle that I won't say all real estate agents experience, but many, many people that I had a front row seat to watching, I would say that was the number one thing that impacted their business when the market started to change, was that they hadn't, right? We got fast at what we could do and what our output was, and we got really aggressive with it. And then when things slow down and when things are hard or a little bit more challenging, or didn't quite meet our expectations, your people are going to start looking externally and go, was that really worth it?
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Do I like who I'm in business with? Like, do they matter to me? What is that actual story? And I honestly think that's why people struggled so much in retention, was because that thought that, and I will say, even as leaders, I personally found it challenging sometimes to slow down and tell people how valuable they were to us, what that looked like. And that wasn't on the KW front, that was more on a personal team front, but that became a true challenge, was going, hey, I love you. And the details matter when things start to become challenging. And that's really what that is. And did that company that they were associated with have the story to tell?
Right.
Right? And if there's not a story, then what is there to be connected to?
That's right. Yeah. Then it becomes just about the logistical, technical, what am I going to get out of this? It doesn't have any heart.
Well, and it's not proprietary at that point, right? You could go out there and recreate any tech tool, anything.
Right.
People do this business because of the relationships that they have. They stay in business with people because of the relationships they have. And so if you are silly enough to think that some type of piece of technology is going to keep somebody in business with you,
it's not.
It's just not. They want the story. They want to be a part of something that they feel included on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's where a lot of people, I believe that's where a lot of people get it wrong in their business. They're selling instead of getting into relationship with people. And ultimately, it truly comes down to people not, leaders not wanting to get hurt. They don't want people to be disappointed. And so they leave it kind of at an arm's length in this business, I feel like a lot of times, because they're so afraid to have people get close to them, when closeness is what keeps people. They want to be in your world.
Right.
And while, of course, you have standards and boundaries because it should be an honor to be in their world, at the same time, I think it could be argued that we could do, especially after COVID, leaders could probably do a better job in this industry of slowing down and being in it with people.
And letting people create, letting people assemble, letting people both by themselves or as a team, have a little group, and they get that joy of coming back and saying, look what I did. Right. Yeah.
Give them bumpers. Don't tell them what to do.
You actually bring up a little side note about why it's the IKEA effect, and it's not just the assemble a kit effect. The instructions that come with the IKEA furniture, it's laughable. There's memes about how bad it is. Right. So I think that also ties in with self-esteem of you actually figured out what the stick figure man guide was trying to show you to do, right? So
it is in fact rocket science.
Right. So you're kind of right. When you're empowering people to create or assemble something, don't give them a ton of instruction. And please don't say, so-and-so down the hall did it this way. Here's all their notes. Do what they did. That'll have a counter effect. That will make them feel like, wow, you don't even think I'm smart or good enough that I could create something specifically for us. So yeah, the time is right for us to really lean in on this, especially in leadership, coaching, management, all of that. In terms of the salespeople, really factoring that in with the clients, especially clients that have done a lot of things to their homes or built them themselves, or even did a custom design. They really could fall in the trap of overvaluing their property. I want to get back to you for a minute. So here you are, team leader of Keller Williams, Austin, growing staff, growing agents, really building and assembling a company and refining, polishing, moving it ahead. One of the laws of business that I learned at Keller Williams is authorship is ownership. So I want to take, I was thinking about it today. I was like, that's almost a little bit of a different translation of the IKEA effect.
Yeah.
And
I'd agree.
I just wanted to give you a chance to share, what are you assembling right now? How are you stimulating your own presence of mind and self-perception by assembling? And how are you, or could you give that gift to your staff and your organization so that it could ripple out and benefit others?
So I think one of the biggest things that I'm kind of rumbling about in my head, I took on the team leader position in August of last year. It's June now, so not quite a year yet. But one of the things that I think has been really interesting for me to witness is that people are actually more capable of taking initiatives than we actually give them credit for. And I think that the conversation that I'm having internally is, do they feel safe enough to take that initiative, to make mistakes? Is it a safe environment for your people that report to you or surround you, even if you're just leading from influence and don't necessarily have a title? Do they feel like they have the ability to fail? Because I think sometimes we think, oh, they just ought to have the skill set and be able to figure it out, and we're moving 100 miles a minute. And the truth is, almost everything is you're able to develop or learn, but nobody comes into it good at it. And
that's right.
So encouraging failure quickly over and over until they get good at it has been something that I've really tried to bring to the forefront, because really, if you look around you and somebody's not in action, right? They're in inaction.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they're afraid of something. So what is it that they're afraid of? And typically it's letting somebody else down.
Right.
So can you give them a safe space to have an open conversation around, look, you're not going to let me down. Here's the outcome that we're looking for. And we're going to go on a journey to get there. And we may not get it right the first time. And that's okay. And so I think that that's been one of the things that I've really tried to figure out is how to bring a little, I want to use the word like relief, like it really, like to truly make it a safe space to grow and fail quickly. Because the truth is I never want to be the smartest person in the room. And I don't think I'm the smartest person in the room.
Right.
And yet a lot of people, even if they are smart, they won't speak up. And that's usually because they're afraid. And so giving the people around me, I think that ability has been really, really important to our culture. And it's been really cool to watch as I've made some of those shifts and giving them torches and go figure it out.
Go figure it out.
That's what they did to me when I was younger. So go figure it out. You can do it. I'll be here to catch you if you fall. But that's been pretty powerful. So it's almost dismantling and not necessarily building in that sense, but they are building things, right?
Right.
So that's number one. And number two, the other thing that I was going to say is that I had over the last year, so about a year ago, we opened up Do Kind, which is my real estate team. And since then, it was not the best market to make that jump in, to be transparent. Right. In doing so, what I kind of realized is that some of these other organizations that I oversaw, as far as like these real estate teams and stuff, were far, far more complicated than they actually needed to be. I mean, when we launched, there wasn't any like fancy technology. There wasn't any like secret sauce. Like we literally went out and I got a transaction coordinator that got paid at closing and a listing manager that got paid at closing. And we were literally like, we're just going to figure this out as we go.
Yes.
And we went back and started from scratch and we ran open houses. We talked to the people in our sphere. We started putting stuff on social media, which my husband is absolutely wonderful and ridiculous.
Yes, he is.
God bless him. And, really in putting these Legos back together after starting over with a clean slate, it's been really interesting to see how simple can be so effective.
Right.
We are already sitting in the top 15 for teams at the Southwest Market Center. And again, we literally just June 1st, we crossed being in business, which feels like not real, but it was technically. And so, it was simple to get started. We went back and we said, how do we want to do this? And we want to be the people that people think of when it comes to real estate. Great. How do you do that? Go get in your community.
Yes.
Go get into relationship.
The relationship is in the conversation and being present and talking. It's in all of it.
Yeah. And I don't mean to dumb it down because there's some people who have some really incredible businesses that are complicated and heavy and expensive.
You can dumb it down. I'm a big fan of that. Now, I need to do an episode on the dumb it down effect. Is that a thing? I'm going to make that a thing. The dumb it down effect with Bridget Stuart.
Yeah. But it has been wild, absolutely wild to me how simple this can be with a little bit of good marketing, a little bit of personality on social media, and to just go talk to your people, go to the coffees.
And
go
being
to the network.
yourself.
Yes. Choose something that
is
real
human.
for you. Yes, that is authentic and that's again sounds so cliche, but truly it's like you don't have to be nobody cares to see you stand in front of a Ferrari in an Armani suit anymore. I'm sorry.
No, that was my photo shoot later today.
Maybe controversial. Sorry. They may want to pivot, but that's not what people are attached to anymore, right? Again, it goes back to the story and being a part of that community in that way. So anyways, what I'm building is that is my IKEA effect right now, and having everybody on our team understand that it's as much my team as it is theirs. And we're building it based on their feedback and what they need in their businesses. And you'd be shocked at how happy people can be with less.
Right.
But more from you as the leader. They want that relationship. And I love being in business with these guys. I love having them around. When I'm having a bad day, they're where I want to be. And so I think that has just been such an aha for me. And it's so exciting to be on this side of things a year later and things are moving and shaking. And we're having a really great year despite I know some people are having a challenging year.
Right.
But it's cool to see what all of us together in a good environment and community can do.
I have so enjoyed discussing this concept with you. And
it's been fun. I loved it. Nail on the head, Bridget.
I
Good
just
job.
know you're such a builder. You're building Do Kind with your team there, and making them, you're giving them that feeling they are building it. They're part of it. They're making it real, right? And they're allowed each in their individual way to contribute. And looking at what you're doing with Keller Williams Austin and the impact you're having there with running, it's a fairly large market center, correct? Like how many real estate agents approximately do you have at your location?
So out of my location, we're at 365 agents, but that market center, Southwest and Lake Travis, which is kind of like flagship headquarters, we are just underneath 1,500, I believe. So we are pretty strong here in Central Texas.
Well, I'm going to challenge you to take our conversation and look at any upcoming meetings you might have, staff meetings, sales meetings, and just think, how could you work this in a way that could be meaningful for a group and or individuals? And I'd love to hear back from you on a little IKEA Effect experimentation that you can do.
Yeah. My next team meeting, I'm just going to bring furniture for them to assemble.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that because the IKEA Effect, some of the biggest testing that was done in this involved origami and people making origami. So it's not furniture, but you could be onto something.
Assembly.
Where if you if you actually did what do they call that? Like an icebreaker activity. And it's either origami or a puzzle or something that they have to make, either each one or, hey, if they're at tables, however they are. I don't know. You might be onto something. It could be a way of demonstrating it without
before talking about
it. Yes.
I love that. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. We'll figure out something. And also IKEA should maybe consider sponsoring you for this podcast because
IKEA, I'm available.
IKEA, this is your podcast.
It is so funny. Well, thank you so much. If people wanted to reach out to you.
Yes.
And if they want to talk to Erin Leff, team leader at Keller Williams Austin 1, how could they reach out to you?
You can DM me on Instagram, Do Kind Erin, all one word.
ERIN.
That's right. Do Kind Erin. And I'd be happy to chat with you there, or Erin Leff at KW.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. I want to check back in with you and see what happens as you play around with the IKEA Effect.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.